Now, okay, I'm streaming now. Now complete the thought.
Now complete the thought that I was having before we started the stream, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I was just saying, if you want to keep doing more of those. Um, the last time I talked with Super about this, he seemed at least fine or interested even in doing one about the first law trilogy.
I mean, maybe I do that. Trying to get Thupa to do anything is easier said than done these days. Honestly, you should set it up, and you could pretend to invite me at the last minute.
I know, like I would just do it regularly. I mean, it's been quite some weeks since I talked with him about it. But yeah, he seemed interested in it. But
I
yeah, it's not what we're doing today.
I mean, I'd actually be more interested in talking First Law now that I've read some actual proper George Martin because I know that everyone compares Abercrombie to Martin. Although to my mind they're not remotely similar at all, so
Yeah, they're not a good comparison. I also like they probably just did it because of the tone and not because of the style.
I don't even
Like that,
know if I'd compare them in that way too. Like there's something very like farcical and disinterested about the way Abercrombie writes. Like Abercrombie writes, he creates these really big conflicts, but they feel kind of irrelevant. Like with Abercrombie, I always think, okay, we're in this scene with these characters. Nothing outside of it really feels that important. Uh,
yeah,
with
and the
with
events don't intersect that much.
Yeah, and a lot of the conflicts just feel kind of obvious. A lot of it just happens. It's just,
Yeah,
oh, someone's killing people, and then you don't really hear much about it. Then in the last 10 chapters, it's like, oh my God, this is the guy who was killing people. And then they have a
yeah.
confrontation, and one of them dies. Not a lot to actually talk about, I think. Uh, with Abercrombie, I think the issue with him, it never feels like that many characters really matter or have agency. It's like there's a plot going on, and it bounces characters around, but none of them feel that important. Uh, like the whole background radiation of the first Law trilogy is the war in England or whatever it's called, and it never really felt that intimate to any of the characters. Like it doesn't feel personal. It's just something going on that explains why they're, marching through the forest at some point.
Yeah, I agree. Like the. I mean, first of all, I find it funny that we're talking about Abercrombie now instead of instead of George Martin.
Yep.
Um,
Well, this is
but
happening.
I definitely agree that First Lord trilogy is not very plot centric at all. Like it's not the focus at all of the stories.
Yeah, but in a bad way, I think. Or maybe that's
Yeah,
unfair because I think it does work for what Abercrombie is doing. Because Abercrombie is really just writing story as an excuse for having fun little character moments.
yeah,
And Martin does that too to an extent, but with Martin the characters making decisions is much more intertwined in the plot,
and the
where with
world just
Abercrombie it feels like
feels
a coincidence.
the world feels way more grounded and real, and in a way that the actions characters take in it have way more of an impact on what's actually happening, and the other way around, how the world has an impact on the characters.
I think with Abercrombie it gives me the feeling of, I don't know. I didn't watch The Wire, but I imagine it's like The Wire.
Oh
It just follows a group of
no,
people
no, no.
living in what?
Uh, I would sort of disagree. Like I've watched The Wire.
Well, I have not, and I say different.
I mean, I get what you mean, and to an extent, you may be right, but probably not in the exact same way that you think.
Well, what I meant by that was with Abercrombie, it feels like the characters are a small number of atoms bouncing around in a larger situation where they see the larger situation, but they don't really have a strong connection to it, don't have a lot of ownership to it. There's a small number of people in the world that they care about, but it's pretty isolated and local. Where with George, it feels like a network, like a big organic structure. Like you're following all these disparate characters gain a little glimpse of a larger whole, but they have all this agency and relationship to each other. Their actions are constantly being affected by the actions other people are taking, which are based on what they think the first character will do. There's a much more of a back and forth where Abercrombie
Yeah.
really just feels like little marbles bouncing around in a big, I don't know, jug or some vessel you'd put marbles in.
It also has this sort of fantasy trope of wars being really short, which I really don't like. And with like Game of Thrones or Song of Ice and Fire in general, wars just last 4 years.
Yeah, which is fair. I always remember with the first law, the stupid war in England. There is a part where I forget his name, the fucking Scottish corporal character who becomes the military leader by the
Uh,
end.
yeah, fuck, I forgot his name as well,
Yeah, good old
which is not
what's his
a
fuck. But that
yeah.
guy, there's a part where they're marching north and a wagon breaks down and the troops have to start walking around this wagon and finding alternate routes and, milling about and breaking formation to get along the wagon. And then this character has to go look for a smith because someone just forgot to hire a smith for the army. And then he goes off to the slave mines and finds a smith and comes back. And because the conflict is so short and so sparse, this broken axle on the wagon ends up being like 25% of the entire war.
It's maybe like a little bit exaggerated, but I know exactly what you mean.
Not that much. There's just not that going on. And in a way, Abercrombie is realistic. I mean, when you're living your life, you're really just
I just I just had
subjected to a
to look.
bunch of random happenstance, but it's just not that interesting. Like I much prefer George. George is maybe even less realistic, despite his
Mm,
reputation. But
I think he's more realistic, at least in terms of portraying warfare and logistics and stuff like that. I had to look up the name since I forgot. Colum West, the name of the character we were
right,
talking
that guy.
about. Yeah, but
Yeah,
yeah, let's get more into A Song of Ice and Fire and leave the first law talk for, or maybe if
okay.
we
Yeah,
can do it with Super.
yeah. Well, let's move on to the second law. When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die.
Yeah, it's funny how that became like a slogan for the entire series, even though it's really not that important at all
It's also
thematically.
it's also said by one of the dumbest characters.
Yes.
It's said by
Well,
Cersei, who understands politics
yeah.
less than anyone else in the story, other than maybe Arya.
Yeah, maybe Arya understands politics better than her.
Yeah, it's a close competition. I don't get that quote. Reading this, it made me aware of how many aspects of the show became memes and took on lives of their own,
Yeah,
way beyond the source material. I will start by saying something contentious. I think Tyrion is overrated.
that's only because you've only read the first book.
Okay, I think he was overrated. Okay, you can't
In the
just you
first
can't just
book, I
slap me
agree.
down
Like,
by saying you haven't read all 5 million words of this story.
yeah, no, but the big Tyrion book is the second one, same as the second season is his season. Like that's where his main story and his well, I mean, I won't say his peak, given that his peak is like the stuff at the end of the third book and the end of the fourth season is probably like his peak in terms of character writing. But he has the most presence in the second book and the most scenes and the most stuff surrounding him.
I
Like
feel
he
like
is
he has to have more presence overall. I've seen charts of, the size of the different chapters by character, and it seems like Tyrion is like a third of the viewpoints at this point.
that would mean he has an insane presence if he's a third of all the viewpoints, given how many fucking viewpoints there are.
I might be exaggerating a lot, but it seems like Tyrion's presence gets way out of control as the story goes along. based on reading, the first book, I think it's appropriate that Tyrion is a big presence going forward, but I don't see him as needing to become this like pseudo protagonist like he apparently did.
Oh, he absolutely is like one of the absolute main characters in the story. Yeah, I'm trying, like, this is one of the things I was sort of alluding to earlier before the stream, of stuff that I've kind of forgotten since I reread the book. Like how many chapters he even has in the first novel. Like I don't remember him being very present at all in the first book.
Um, I think it's actually pretty proportional. I could look it up. I'm probably not going to. But it's a pretty reasonable split the whole way. I mean, Ned definitely has the most, and actually, I think Cat is the second
Yes.
most, which
Yeah, she has like quite a number of chapters throughout her story in general, not just the first book. She's very present, given that she basically has to cover Rob's viewpoint, which, I wonder if you were like surprised by the fact that Rob is not a viewpoint character in the books.
uh, as if I was coming straight from the show, I might think that. Having read the first few chapters of the book, it made total sense. Like we see so much of the Starks through Catelyn's eyes that I didn't miss it. I didn't find myself wanting Rob's viewpoint. I will say, Cat is not a very likable character.
Yeah, like I also, in terms of her chapters, I don't like them very much in addition to not liking her character.
I had very conflicted feelings about Cat because one, she's not a very likable character.
Yeah.
She makes constant mistakes. She's fussy. She is a buzzkill. Near the end of the book, everyone else is cheering about how awesome war is, and she has to, butt in and be annoying and say, "Why don't we just cut our losses and go home?"
Well, that would have been the clever choice in this case.
Nah, no. The clever choice would have just been not pissing off Walter Frey. That was the only problem. Oh, which speaking of which, Walter Frey, I liked him so
Walter.
much in the book. I
What?
was not ready with how fun Walter was gonna be.
Walter, not Walter.
Walter, whatever. I'm sure one of his sons is named Walter.
Yeah, one is probably also named Walter. Anyway, well, I don't remember. Like, is he? I don't remember him even being in the first book.
Yeah, it's in the first book, and that was surprising. I've heard several people say the pacing slows way down as the series progresses, and Game of Thrones was surprisingly fast when you look at the whole series. But it's one of Kat's later chapters. She goes to negotiate with the Freys. Rob gets stuck. Rob can't actually get into where they have the first battle with battle with the Lannisters.
Right. Yeah. Right. I do remember. This is like at the very end of the first season. So I think that is also in the first season. So yeah, it must have been in the first book. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy to think, but her chapter of going into the Frey household, the twins, where they have a castle on each
Yeah.
side of the river,
Which is pretty clever.
it is. And her going in and talking to Walter it's one of my favorite parts of the book. I was surprised. He's so funny.
Yeah.
He's just he's just this cackling old madman who's evil and he loves it. He's like Palpatine.
Yeah. It's a funny combination of you liking Walter Frey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Cat was complicated. I was pretty surprised. I will say in terms of the POVs, my favorite was Ned. I generally like Ned's chapters the most. Ned and Cat both have a big advantage where out of the POVs, they're the characters that know the most, so they're the ones that can give you the most information.
Yeah.
Tyrion is
Yeah, Tyrion would probably be like number 3 in terms of knowledge.
Well, Tyrion is very well connected, but he's very isolated from the plot. Like the whole problem with Tyrion is he literally doesn't know what's happening because he gets framed for murder and then he's just running around.
Yeah, he's either in the wilderness or in the Eyrie.
Yeah, I will say Ned was the best. After Ned, it's pretty muddled. Bran was the worst because with Bran
is sort of hard, like general in all the books, his viewpoint.
with Bran, a lot of it deals with him having visions and dreams and, getting exposition. With Bran, it really feels like he's doing the heavy lifting with world building that's going to matter later, that George wants to get out of the
Yeah,
way now.
yeah, especially with all the sort of magic connection stuff. Like he's the magic or one of the magic characters in the story.
Yeah, and I get he's going to be important, but it was a little exhausting because he's having dreams and then he's hanging out in the crypts and seeing ghosts and doing all kinds of stuff that doesn't really affect the plot.
Yeah.
Danny was complicated. It's very muddled. I'd say my least favorite POV is Bran. Sansa is almost as bad. Sansa's even less likable than Bran, but at least Sansa, sees interesting events going on. She's not just laying in a bed, shitting her pants and complaining. Uh, Everyone else is kind of a muddle in the middle. Jon is maybe my second most favorite. It's like Jon and Arya are
I'm
pretty close. Tyrion is maybe slightly below those two. But they're all pretty close. Kat is like dead middle because as a character, Kat is not very fun, but
yeah,
she's
but she has
very
important
good at
information.
delivering
Yeah.
information about other people.
Yes. Um, like I've always sort of disliked John's POV just because it's the classic fantasy hero journey thing. So it's always like a little bit too cliched for me.
I had the
So yeah,
same issue with Jon as I had with Danny, which was kind of the same thing. They feel very disconnected from the, central action. I mean, Danny especially, where
yeah, but
Danny is playing out like an ancient Sumerian myth, and Jon
yeah,
is playing out a medieval court epic or some medieval romance thing, and they barely have anything to do with the, glut of the other characters who are interacting with each other.
yeah. That's like the problem with Danny's storyline is that it's so isolated from the rest of the plot, even by book 5. Um, but with her, at least you have a very exotic setting and cast of characters surrounding her. So that's like generally more interesting than John's storyline.
I feel like with
Um,
Danny, you almost could have split Danny off and made a book series of just her, and that probably would have been fine.
but the whole point is that she eventually is supposed to come to Westeros, so it wouldn't work as just an isolated here is whatever the heck she was doing in Essos. Um, with Danny, I think what's like a problem is that obviously that she does not have much agency throughout her entire thing, so she does very little. So we
Yeah,
like learn more about
I mean, I
the
have feelings
people.
about that. If you want to talk about Danny for a sec,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, Danny's lack of agency is a bit frustrating. One thing that I think was absolutely fucking genius was giving her Jorah and making Jorah
yes,
the son
yeah,
of the commander of the Night's Watch.
yeah. So you at least have this pseudo connection back to Westeros, and he telling her stuff about it. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah,
Like he used to be like one of my favorite characters in the early parts of Game of Thrones, in the early books and the early show.
I really like Jorah. I think he's better than the show, especially because he does a lot to flesh out Danny and give her interesting, dynamics with other people. It's it's
Yeah,
tricky. In terms of Danny's agency, I also
yeah,
that's one of the more maybe controversial takes I have. I like Danny's relationship with Drogo in the books more than the show.
yeah. I do too.
Yeah, and if anyone doesn't know, in the books, like in the show, it was very controversial because Danny basically, has a forced marriage and then she's crying and gets raped, and then she is just being periodically raped by Drogo for like the first half of the season, and then she eventually takes agency by seducing him and actually, trying to participate and win him over that way, and that leads to her becoming more proactive. In the book, she basically likes Drogo almost from the beginning. Like it's complicated, but mostly positive. And I think that works better for her character. I actually found that to be a very believable, reaction when you factor in like she has the abusive brother and this traumatic childhood and like lost her, parental figure at a very young age. It all made
Also
sense with
all
her
the
character, but it also gives her nothing to do.
also all the weird memory fuckery that seems to be going on. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the weird thing about Danny too. They establish a lot of mystery, and where I usually don't care about mystery from the beginning, like I wasn't that invested in who killed John Aaron. Um, like we know who the bad guys in Westeros are. This is not that complicated.
Yeah, do we? Uh,
Yeah, well, I mean, at least from Ned's perspective, like who does he not
yeah, sure.
trust?
From that
The
perspective.
Lannisters. Even if some third party killed John Aaron, we still know who the problem is.
I mean, the thing, yeah, is perspective. That's exactly it. It's all a matter of perspective. Oh, well, most of it is. Um, yeah,
Yeah, but hearing Danny talk about, the house with the red door and how she
yeah,
had servants for a little while, but then the old knight who rescued her and Viserys died, and they stole their money, and her having these
yeah.
whimsical memories of like a incoherent childhood where she was moving all the time.
Uh, Jesus, did you just drop out for a moment? It
What?
sounded like it. I think you just dropped out for like a second or something. Or
Oh,
maybe it
well,
was me.
it might have been you. I just heard an echo. But yeah, they established mysteries early with Danny, and I actually cared for once. It was strange.
You're strange. You caring about the character. No, but I agree. It also spawned the now very iconic Lemon Gate theory, which is very funny.
Yeah, where she was allegedly on an icy rock of an island that sucks, but there was a
Yeah.
lemon tree outside her door somehow.
How can that be? It's so funny that they even referenced this in the first season of House of the Dragon.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, yeah, they have like a mural in the background with lemons on it.
Oh, that's cute. Yeah, I mean, Preston Jacobs made a lot of money off of this over the years. Good for
Well,
him. He deserves it.
I don't know if he made like lots of money off of it, but he like propagated the thing. Like he isn't the one who came up with the theory, but he's the one who propagated it like the most.
That's very cool. And that's one of the weirdest things going over from having watched the show. I'm so primed on all the mysteries and all the, reveals that come later that I'm
Yeah.
suspicious of them in the first place and I don't trust them. Like I've broken through to the next level where, you know, the idea that John was secretly Rhaegar and is it Lyanna?
Yes.
Yeah, R plus L equals J, like that has become
Yes.
so entrenched that I've now broken through to the deeper level of conspiracy.
Yeah, that it can't be true. It's too easy.
Yeah, it's too easy now. It's like no, no, no. I think maybe Preston Jacobs is right, and it's like
Yeah.
4D chess involving a baby swap at the Tower of Joy. But I was looking at it now, being like, okay, him not being Ned's son is so obvious that I'm now looking for clues in the other direction.
You mean no? John is still very likely Ned's son if we go into theory
Exactly.
crafting.
Yeah, I don't know, but it threw me. Also, all the shenanigans of Ned, conveniently blacking out or having issues remembering things.
Yeah, he also has like some stuff going on with his memory, and I find it very sad that we don't get one of the best Ned scenes in the book, which is his fever dream of his remembrance of what happened at the Tower of Joy, or rather parts of it. Yeah, that's not in the show. It's very sad. There's
Yeah.
like, I almost shared this with you at like when you said you were reading Game of Thrones. There's a very good video that basically takes the audiobook version of that scene and like overlays it with nice music and fan artwork, and yeah, it's pretty cool. And then it ends with the scene from the show with Ned waking up in the Tower of the Hand. So it like flows from what we get in the book to what we get in the show, and it's a really cool video.
Yeah, I mean, I'm feeling more conflicted about the show as we go along. because it feels like the show really got like 20% of what was going on. And it feels
Uh,
like if the show had kept going, even with the even if they had, infinite time and money to tell the story, it wouldn't have been satisfying in the end because there was so much groundwork and so many little hints that they just didn't put in.
I think I would give them like a little bit more credit than 20%. In the early seasons, like season 1 and 2, they still got very, very much of it right and included like a lot of it. They changed some stuff a little, but it still made sort of sense. And then obviously that dropped off the face of the earth when when things progressed. But I think the adaptation for season 1 and largely also for season 2 is probably one of the best book adaptations to TV I've ever seen.
Oh no, Game of Thrones season 1 is still one of the best TV shows ever made. It's just making me realize the project was basically damned from the beginning. Like even if George had written the books, I don't know if they would have been able to give it a satisfying,
I
conclusion.
mean, if George wrote the script, I mean, or what? Or do you mean
Same
if
same
George
difference,
finished?
whatever.
Okay, no, now I get it. Like you mean if George had finished all the books? But the thing is, and I don't know. I mean, you don't seem to really know it, and I don't know how many other people who only watch the show or parts of the show know this. Um, the showrunners definitely had enough material to craft a very very large chunk of the books in terms of material, and they didn't. They dismissed so much, kept so much out, so many characters that are not even in the show that have tons of material, and that's really the first big sin that the showrunners committed. Like they had so much more material that they just didn't use.
Well, I guess I'll get there when we get there.
Yeah,
And maybe this would be fair to say. Content in terms of like literally what happens, maybe they kept most of it, but all the little connections between the events and between the people in the world that you don't see, that so much of it was lost, and that feels so important. One of the biggest
yeah.
examples, and I get why they didn't dig so far into this because it'd be hard to show this without a flashback or something. One of the biggest examples is them not. I don't remember if they don't mention it at all or if they just briefly allude to it, but them not digging into Littlefinger's duel with Brandon, that was unfortunate because that's one of my favorite things in the book.
Yeah, they do mention it in the show, I'm pretty sure, but yeah, they don't go much into it. I think they just mention that it happened and roughly what happened, but
I
not
mean,
in
you
detail.
don't see it in the book either, but the details you get are just so compelling. And Littlefinger to me, his character, I was amazed at how much I love Littlefinger. Like
Yeah, he's a great
Littlefinger
character.
is maybe my favorite character in the book. Um,
I mean,
I
yeah.
don't even know about maybe. He probably just is. Oh, Pip. Pip is my favorite character, but then Littlefinger,
Uh,
and it's
why,
very
why,
close.
why Pip?
Well,
He's
because
funny.
it's just so cool. It's just John is hanging out, and the mean drill master is picking on Sam, and he says, "Oh, you want to defend Sam? Like, how about 3-on-1?" Then Pip jumps in and says, "How about 3-on-2?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah!"
Nice.
The entire rest of the book, I couldn't focus because I was just thinking about Pip. Every time it cut to the north, Commander Mormont was wanting to talk about zombies and dragons, all kinds of stuff, but I was just like, "But is Pip okay? Where's Pip?" I wanted all of
I,
John's
I see.
chapters to start with a little paragraph describing what Pip's been up to. Yeah, but
Is is Dolorous Ed already in the first book?
Gesundheit?
Dolorous Ed. He's like one of the Watchmen.
I
Maybe he's
don't
only introduced
think
in the second
so.
book. I mean, he's like one of the people that go on the journey past the wall. So he's definitely there from
They're
like book 2
just
on.
gathering together in John's final chapter.
Yeah. No, so I was like I didn't remember if he was in the first book or not. Only he's very funny.
Yeah, Littlefinger was great though. I mean, one, he's funny and interesting. I like that he gets little adventures with Ned. Like they hang out in whorehouses, and he goes through the motion of helping Ned solve the mystery, even though I think,
Yeah.
almost certainly already knows.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like he helped him with the finding the babies, right?
Yeah, he took Ned to the whorehouse and talked to the teenager that Robert knocked up,
Yeah,
trying to help account for all the bastards.
yeah.
Littlefinger's duel with Brandon though was great. Like I didn't even remember from the show that Littlefinger had much of a relationship with Cat. Like maybe I remember them mentioning it once that they
Okay,
used
that
to know each
then
other.
they did like a bad job if that was forgettable,
Well, it was a
given
long time
how.
ago, but I
Okay.
I think I remember her being like, "Oh, I know you, Littlefinger. How are you doing?" when they met. I need to watch the show again now and do a comparison.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Like
Littlefinger. Oh, go.
I I watched the first season before I had seen before I had read the first book. Like I watched the first season, loved it, and then bought all the books.
Oh, sorry, RA. We're talking Game of Thrones.
Okay, that's fine. You guys
Yeah.
ping me later.
Okay.
Thanks.
Well, I'll see you in a bit, man.
Peace.
The Yeah, I thought I heard someone. Yeah, I just zoned out. Are we still talking Brandon?
Um, fuck, what was I talking about a moment ago? All right, I only said that that I watched the first season before I read the books.
Oh yeah, me
But yeah,
too. I mean, I fell off at
yeah.
the very beginning of season 5, but I watched them as they came out, so it was a long time ago.
I mean, I only watched the first season before I then read all the books. So after like second season onward, I read the books before that. Yeah, but we were talking still about like Littlefinger and
Yeah.
Catelyn
You did what I
connection.
did with Harry Potter. When I was a kid, my mom tried to read it to me, and after chapter 1, I was like, "This is dumb. They're just talking about some guy being followed around by a cat." Then I watched the
Yeah.
first movie. It's like, "Wait, there's wizards and stuff," and then I read all the books. But yeah, Brandon, the duel is so great, and it just made Littlefinger's character to me because you learn, oh, Littlefinger grew up with Cat and Lysa, in the Tully household because he was a
Yeah,
ward from a poor, a noble family, but one of the very weak
yeah,
ones
like
that
one of the
barely
poorest and
counts.
most. Oh, actually I don't know if they were like poor, but definitely like one of the absolute smallest ones around.
I think they say that all he really owns is a tract of land and like a flock of sheep. Like the
Yeah,
Baelish are mostly known for owning a large flock of sheep. That's their claim to fame. But it was crazy because they were basically raised, almost as siblings, like even like younger
yeah,
than Theon. They were all relatively close in age. Baelish was even a little younger than
yeah.
Cat, and he fell in love with Cat. And then when Cat is becoming, a pawn to secure the alliance to destroy Eris, he just spurgs out and decides he's going to fight a duel to the death with Brandon Stark, who's like the
Wouldn't you?
coolest, toughest man in the entire continent. And he's this
Yeah.
little shrimpy, nerdy guy. It's like this little skinny, like pencil neck nerd dressed in knight armor, screeching about how he's going to defend
He,
the honor of his
yeah,
lady.
he didn't even have a full armor set, so Brandon took off parts of his armor as well.
Oh God, I forgot that. And it's so
I'm
great
not
because
sure if
like
that's mentioned in the first book. Like you come like Catelyn thinks back to the duel at multiple points in the story, so you get like more and more details as it goes on.
yeah, she thinks back multiple times. Oh, I also like when she meets Littlefinger for the first time again, she says, I came to this nest of hornets and I found a brother that I thought I had lost," which I'm sure Littlefinger was so happy to hear her say that.
Especially since they didn't part on good terms.
No, like that's the thing. Like Baelish had this suicidal quest to win Cat from Brandon, who Brandon didn't even really have a choice in the matter either. Like the parents just set
No.
it up because it was politically vital that they sleep together. Uh, and have kids. And frickin' Baelish just charged at Brandon, and everyone who knew Baelish, including Kat, begged Brandon, like, please don't kill him. He's an idiot. He means well. His heart's in the right place. He likes Kat. Just please don't kill him. And Brandon is trying to spare his life,
Yeah.
but Baelish won't surrender. So Brandon just has to keep beating the piss out of Baelish as he breaks more and more bones but he refuses to surrender, and eventually he just leaves Littlefinger as a broken heap on the ground. And Brandon didn't even mean anything mean by it. Like, he didn't even want to do it. He just had to.
Yeah, he gave him like multiple chances to surrender.
Yeah, it completely recontextualized Littlefinger for me because you realize, oh, Littlefinger's his schemes and his machinations and his backstabbings, he doesn't want to do that. Like, he wants to be the guy on the white horse that, you know, can ride out in the daylight and fight and be the strong, cool, proud, honorable man. But he's a weak fucking nobody who everyone hates, so his only path to victory is the underhanded stuff.
Yeah, I think by now he probably likes doing it that way. Yeah, but back in the day he wanted to be the knightly type.
Yeah, it's just sad because like he's a combat pragmatist. Like he became the scumbag because he tried to be the cool guy, but he couldn't pull it off, and so he just, you know, got carried off in a stretcher in a broken, bloody heap to be nursed back to health very slowly while his while his rival took his lady. It's sad.
Yeah.
He is kind of a creep though. Like he is a I'm not saying he's a great guy, but that's one thing about George's characters. Even the ones that you hate as people, you still like them.
Yeah, or you at least understand where they're coming from.
I know, like the only characters that I just flat out didn't like at all, it's hard to even think about them. I guess I didn't really like Cersei. I'll admit that.
Yeah.
I don't like Cersei. I don't like the Mountain.
Yes.
I don't like Lysa Tully. I maybe don't like the Executioner guy. I guess Jaime's not the most likable either. But most of the characters that are just complete bastards are still lovable. Like Roose Bolton shows up. Or no, wait, Lord Bolton.
That's Roose Bolton, yeah.
Oh yeah, Roose Bolton shows up, and like I know what his deal is. I've seen the show. But he's still so cool. He's like this glassy-eyed, quiet little man that everyone's afraid of because he's just so creepy.
Yeah, it's like, I do like the way Roose is written in the books.
Yeah,
like he's an interesting character.
Yeah, there's all these shithead characters. They're still so fun. Like even the fat guy with the yellow beard who sells Daenerys to Drogo in the first scene. The Tyrashi guy.
Pentoshi.
Pentoshi. I like the Great John. I like Karstark. I like Littlefinger. I like Varys. Tywin Lannister is like the greatest. I loved him in the show and I loved him in the book. He's just a wonderful character.
Charles Dance plays him like perfectly in the show, and it's such a big drop in quality once he isn't there anymore.
Oh, I'm sure. Like Tywin is such a love to hate character. Like Joffrey is hate to hate, but Tywin is love to hate. Because you admire him so much. And out of all the characters that I saw, like people asked me when I told them I was reading this, they asked, with Game of Thrones, or having seen the show, do you see the character as the person? And in most cases that wasn't a big deal. Like Ned, yeah, it's hard not to see him as Sean Bean and all that. You know, some come and go. It helps that a lot of the characters are way younger than their TV portrayals, so they don't really look like their characters that much when you account for that. But Charles Dance is Tywin, and I could not overwrite that in my head. Like more than any other character, I saw Charles Dance.
It's a better version of how he is described in the book, where he is like half bald.
And he has mutton chops and all kinds of shit. I did like that book Tywin. Everything about him is gold. Like he even has little flecks of gold in his eyes almost with how light they are. I thought that was cool. I still like Charles Dance. Yeah. Littlefinger is great, and also he's more likable because there's so much hinted at in the books that's unclear, and there's so much potential for things to change. There's a decent amount of plausible deniability that Littlefinger is that bad. Like, there's always a chance that circumstance kind of made him do that stuff.
Well, the question would be, what does Littlefinger want?
I don't know. Maybe Littlefinger is running an orphanage, and it was going to get foreclosed on unless he killed Ned Stark.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, he had an orphanage full of all of Robb's bastards.
Most of them are dead.
Yeah, that's a bummer. I feel like Robert would not be happy about that.
Yeah, I also don't think he would be happy. Like, he would probably not care much about the children in general, but he would not be happy about them getting all killed.
I don't know. Ned's reminiscing about how when they were fighting the campaign and Robb, knocked up a local girl and kept visiting the child they had even after he didn't care about the mother anymore. That was cute. Like Robert, I think Robert is he's right behind Littlefinger with being my favorite character in the book. Like Robert is so damn good in the book.
He is really good. He's really good in both the book and the show. I don't think he has like that many scenes where he's present in the book.
No, in the scheme of things, I mean, you know what? He doesn't have that many scenes relative to his role in the plot. I'll say that. Unlike Ned, who's driving much of the story and shows up all the time, like Robert shows up a fair amount for. Robert gets a decent number of scenes. He gets like a solid 4 or 5 where he has a major presence. I guess that's not much when you consider how important it is, but it's still something. But Robert just commanded every scene he was in. He's such a strong personality.
I mean, he sure is.
Yeah, and he hits such crazy extreme, and he's so believable. Like, I really feel like if you track down George R. R. Martin's past, you would find a figure a lot like Robert in his life. Probably his father.
I don't know about that, but yeah, he's a cool sort of concept character of the guy who won and then just really fucking sucks at being a king. And he would rather do other shit.
Yeah, and I wonder if there are some overtones there that we might get into later. But one thing the books did so well, both the show and the books, they do a good job of showing the tragedy of Robert and how washed up he is and how sad it is that he's handling his success so poorly. The book does such a good job of selling you on how cool he used to be, though. Because you get to see him from Ned's perspective, and you remember what he was like. One of my favorite scenes in the book is if you remember during the tournament, the hand tourney, when one of the first matches, the Mountain goes up against the brand new knight Sir Hugh, and Sir Hugh has a fucked up face guard, and the Mountain catches him in the neck and kills him with his lance.
Yes.
And then right after that, the Mountain, I think he goes against the Knight of the Flowers. And
against Loras Tyrell.
And it turns into a bickering contest, and later people say Sir...
That Loras cheated.
Yeah, that Loras used a mare that was menstruating to drive the Mountain's horse crazy, which, I don't know, maybe the horse takes after the rider and it's ultimately his fault, who knows. But... right after that, like, it turns into a bickering fist fight, and the Hound gets between the Mountain and Sir Loras. And in the book, Ned has this whole introspective memory where he talks about Jon Arryn said that a commander has to have a good battlefield voice, and Robert always had the best of them. And now Robert boomed out and yelled, "Quit this nonsense in the name of your king!" And then the Hound bows, and the Mountain's sword goes over the Hound's head, and then the Mountain backs off and bows, and it's just the coolest thing. Like, you see how strong and forceful Robert can be in the right situation, and then he's such shit at handling everything else.
Yeah. I'm not sure if this this might not be in the first book, but one of the perspective you get on Robert is that he was also super good in turning defeated enemies into his friends.
Yeah, he's like Caesar. Like, he can defeat people and then, he shows mercy. And they ominously hint at Stannis, talking about how Stannis is not like that at all. It's like, no, Stannis will fucking kill everyone who steps out of line unconditionally. Yeah, Robert was like this cool, magnanimous leader that... Once he killed Aerys, that was all he really wanted. Like, he kind of let everyone off the hook.
And I mean, he wanted to kill Rhaegar, which he did, obviously. That was his big thing.
Yeah, he did that ahead. And also the Battle of the Trident. I don't know if we're getting an accurate version of it, but it's so visually compelling.
Yeah.
Where Rhaegar has... Oh, that's one goofy thing in the books the show couldn't really do. Everyone has colored armor in the books.
Yeah, like it's not as drab in the books as it is as it is portrayed in the show. Like everyone has like insane splendor and weird ass carvings and whatever on their armor.
Yeah, and the Battle of the Trident, Robert goes up with I think silver armor and he has a stag helmet. He has giant antlers on his helmet, which does not sound practical at all for a battlefield. Then Rhaegar is wearing jet black and he has a dragon helmet and he has rubies in his chest. And Robert smashes his chest and the rubies fly everywhere and the soldiers get off their horses to look for the rubies.
Yeah, I think it's still called the Ruby Fort.
Yeah, that's
the place where named after that.
Is that where they have the trial for the dog?
It might. Yeah, I think that's where it is.
Yeah, which that was such a sad scene.
Yeah, that's so fucked up. Yeah, okay, this dog didn't do it. Well, we kill it anyway because we need to make an example.
Well, and the lead up in the books was so much better too, because in the show it's something that just kind of happens. Like there's the incident with the butcher's boy, and then you cut to the trial, and then you see the hound, killed the kid. In the books, it's like a 3-day long affair, where there's the incident with Arya and Joffrey, in the sword fighting, and Joffrey's being a dick, and then the wolf jumps in and bites Joffrey. Like that happens, and the kids run away. Like they run out into the woods and hide for a few days because they're scared shitless. And then all the people in the convoy start sending out scouts looking for them. And there's this like little race because obviously the Starks want to find Arya before the Lannisters do, so they can protect her emotionally if nothing else, because it's very scary. Like that was really tense. And then they learn, they say, "Oh sir, Arya has been found. The queen demanded she go straight to her," and Ned's like, "Fuck," and stomps off.
Yeah, he's like really fucking angry.
Robert did not handle that well.
No, he didn't.
I remember in an interview, George was talking about Robert saying that, one of his key features is that he hates conflict. Where he loves fighting, but he hates arguing. Like court politics and like fighting within the household, he just can't be bothered.
I mean, it comes definitely off as that.
Yeah. Oh god, there's a part in the book that's so fucking... There's a line that just killed me. Where when Jaime learns that Tyrion has been captured, which, again, great job, Kat. Amazing idea that you did that. When Jaime learns, he takes his men and he confronts, Ned and Littlefinger, and there's a slaughter. And just to be a dick, like just out of spite, Jaime, yells, "Kill all of Ned's men." And then, the beloved men that Ned has known for their entire lives are being cut down around him. And he's fucking pissed. And then when he gets to Robert, he tells him about it. And Robert's reaction is like, "Ah, fuck, whatever. They killed 5 of your men. You killed 3 of theirs. It's a wash." Where he just straight up goes, "Yeah, I mean, you got a few good hits in during the cold-blooded murders, so therefore it's not that important."
It sounds like him, yeah.
Yeah, I've had bosses like that.
Yeah.
Notice the plurality of that statement. Yeah. Oh God, Robb is amazing. Also, before we move on from Robb, few things. One, I was intrigued that in the books, Renly is like a big, beefy bear of a man like Robert.
And was he described like that?
Yeah, Renly is almost as big as Robert, and Robert is like 6'5".
I mean, I definitely remember him being still described, at least in terms of his clothing, as more fashionable and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, he's like prissy and effeminate in ways, and in a way that Robert is not, but he can still pass for like one of the big shit kicker guys at court, which, TV show Renly is really not that way at all. Actually, when the Mountain is at the tourney, when Ned is having his internal dialogue, he says, "King Robert is a big man, and his brother Renly was a big man too, but both were dwarfed by Hodor, but then Hodor looks like a little child compared to the Mountain," and he specifically uses Renly as an example of a big, strong guy.
Okay, yeah, I don't remember that at all.
Like, if you read through the lines with Renly's personality, where he's like a very jokester, Renly acts like a fun uncle in the books. Like, he's not
Yeah.
as serious or as mean or as tough as Robert, but he doesn't
No,
seem
and
like someone who would be out of place on a battlefield at all.
One of the most interesting things about Renly is when he comes to Ned and basically asks for his support to take the throne. That's like, yeah, man, if that had happened, how that would have changed the story. That would be insane.
Yeah, and in the books it even seems more justifiable. I need to rewatch the scene from the show. Because in the show it feels like Renly is very explicitly saying, you know, we're doing this to fuck with Stannis. We're doing this to cockblock Stannis and steal the crown from him, and I'm going to be king instead. That at least seems like the implication in the show.
Yeah.
In the book, it really seems like Renly is just making a purely good decision that is objectively correct, and Ned denies it out of honor. Oh, that's the thing in the... I need to rewatch this as well, because the thing in the book that just galled me, Ned has a confrontation with Cersei, and he just gives her infinite time to respond to the information. Ned pulls her into the Godswood and just says, hey, I totally know about the incest and you cucked the king, and I'm going to tell him eventually at some point. No hurry though, just you should look into a new address while I'm being the hand. Okay, later, bye. And it's so obvious in that moment that Ned is going to fucking die.
I think he just honestly thought that she would just fuck off from that moment onward, like that she would leave immediately.
Yeah, I think Ned he has this weird assumption that people are going to behave not necessarily morally, but normally, like they're going to just respect the basic order of the social system.
Yeah.
And no, like that's weird. he just assumes, and I don't get it because even if Cersei's a fucking idiot, like Tywin isn't, and if you give Cersei all this time, she's obviously going to go to Tywin.
I mean, she cannot go to Tywin about this, at least not with... I mean, she would have to frame it like very differently. Like she cannot tell.
Yes,
Tywin
but she can stir up trouble and just tell, you know, Dad, hey, I'm in trouble. I think Ned's going to stage a coup or something. Like,
yeah,
Cersei couldn't tell Tywin the truth. I mean, also there's an outside chance Tywin secretly knows the truth and is just in total denial about it.
That he might, that he's just denying. It's like we don't know what he believes truly.
Yeah, it's crazy that my grandson looks exactly like me. I wonder how that happened.
Yeah, must be those Baratheon genes.
Yeah, that's so funny too. Like, and Preston Jacobs breaks down in some of his videos. He elaborates how George just has a fascination with recessive genes as a concept.
Yeah,
and like multiple stories of him involve it. The idea that Jon Arryn and then Ned, like, they kind of invent Mendelian genetics by just staring at a book listing people's hair colors for 300 years.
Yes. Yeah.
It also makes more sense in the book than the show. Because in the show, Ned is just kind of reading the descriptions and then a light bulb pops up over his head. In the book, you understand. It's like, it's the first generation specifically that always inherits the dark hair. That's weird.
It's a cool little thing that's in both the books and the show.
Yeah, I think in the books they could take the time to make it a little more explicit.
Like in the show, I think he only goes through like 3 generations or something.
Yeah. Wrapping up Robert, maybe this should have been my last thought, but George has this goofy thing where like he thinks he's Tyrion Lannister, and everyone always thought that was his self-insert.
And then it's Sam.
Nope, and then it ends up being Robert. Robert is George R. R. Martin.
No.
Yep.
No, I don't think so.
Yep. He is. George. Because what Robert's whole thing is he was this like young, hopeless romantic that, you know, chased this dream and was denied it and had his heart broken. And then, you know, that spurred him on to greatness where he became king, and then he spent the entire rest of his life neglecting his duties and letting his kingdom fall into ruin and only really understanding the significance of his action actions on his deathbed with the people he betrayed, where he lied to himself the entire time.
The funny thing about that is that there are like George just loves this well, not trope, given that it did happen to him in real life, so he builds it into every story pretty much that he writes, and Game of Thrones is absolutely full with this character setup. Like there's
Do you
many,
mean
many...
do you mean like the Fisher King thing specifically, or
Fisher King?
well, what are you?
No,
ignore that.
I mean like the love gone wrong thing. Like he has multiple characters in Game of Thrones who have exactly the same setup. I think Preston Jacobs also did a video about that.
I mean, he's definitely
he's
definitely mentioned it. It seems like there's hardly any good happy couples in a Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Or if they are, they're the side characters that we don't really care about that much.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like the George R. Martin special that's everywhere.
Yeah, you wonder, but yeah, that was just a weird irony I noticed that, you know, he explicitly compared himself to like a few characters for a long time, but then at the end, and when you look at his actual life, it's like, nope, you're Robert, man. I hate to be the one to tell you this.
Every single character, or rather the writer is every single character that he ever writes.
Yes, but he's Robert twice.
He's all twice to fill up Robert's size.
Yeah. It's also funny Robert just became fat with age. Oh, Robert's so funny too. Like his jokes land every time.
He is very funny, yeah.
He's terrorizing his squire as he's trying to put on his armor to participate.
Yeah. And that's actually, is it? I think this is Lancel Lannister, even in that scene, who basically then gets involved in getting him killed.
It's a Lannister. I don't remember which one.
I think it is Lancel Lannister. Right. Lancel Lannister was his squire.
Oh yeah, because Cersei gave his squire wine and said, you know, make sure it's the favorite vintage.
Yeah, and it was like the super strong wine, so Robert had less chance in dodging the boar.
It's also cool that Robert killed the boar with his bare hands, with his guts trailing out on the ground.
I don't remember him killing it with his bare hands.
Okay, well, I think that's what happened.
If it makes you happy. I mean, I know he killed the boar, but yeah.
Yeah, so it was very cool. Few other characters. Jon. I was amazed at how young Jon felt in the books, and that works. I don't know if Book Jon is more likable than Kit Harington.
I think he is, yeah.
But it's up there. Like Jon is straight up kind of a brat in Game of Thrones, like or in the books. Not horribly, like he has a lot of virtues too, but he acts like an insecure, prissy, you know, teenage boy at times, and it's
which is what he is.
It's funny. Like there's a scene early on when they're all having dinner in Winterfell, and the King is visiting, and you know Jon is down in the rank and file with the common men because he's not allowed to sit at the fancy table while the King's there.
Yeah.
And people, you know, talk shit to Jon and about his uncle and all kinds of things, and Jon just like gets up and storms off, but then he bumps into a serving girl and everyone laughs at him, and he's basically just like, shut up, and runs out into the snow. He's acting like, it feels like a scene from like a sitcom with like a high school cafeteria.
It does. I also like the scene like at Castle Black, where given that he has all this combat training, he's just beating the shit out of people, and just the realization that he is so privileged actually, and he still thinks his life is like shit, and then he gets presented with the lives of all these other people who are at the wall with like way worse lives than him. It's just a funny little dose of reality.
Yeah, that was a very good coming of age story where, you know, he's being bratty and self-important, and then the older knights watch people pull him aside and say like, listen, these are your people now, you need to get over yourself and, you know, be useful and helpful and quit, because he's beating people up in the duels because he's been training with a sword since he was 5, and everyone else is just a farmer or an actor or a prostitute. And then it comes around, and then by the end of the chapter, Jon is helping train the new people in swords, and he's being like an older brother figure. It's cool.
Yeah.
And then later he develops a relationship with Commander Mormont that's almost awkward. Where Commander Mormont gives Jon the family sword.
That's like such a weird thing to do.
I mean, it's fair enough because like Mormont's whole thing is, yeah, my son's a piece of shit who is disowned, so no one's going to inherit this, so it's just mine and I'll give it to you. It's whatever. But it's still awkward because it's a lot. That's a lot. Yeah. That's a big thing to put on a 14-year-old who just got there.
And it's the Valyrian steel sword, and he even says something like, "Oh, it has a bear pommel. Yeah, just mess that thing up and turn it into a wolf or something." It's like so nonchalant.
Like that's very strange because in a poetical way it makes sense where, Mormonts got all dishonored and they lost all their titles, and he lost his son, but now he's the leader of the Night's Watch, and so that's their family now, and Jon is being groomed for command, so okay, he's kind of his son symbolically. It's still weird. Like it's a level of intimacy that would make anyone uncomfortable, and Jon is not the type of person to handle that well. No. It's kind of sad. It's weird the cut to Jorah Mormont too, because you get Commander Mormont's actual son who has this strange, I don't know, servant/father figure relationship with Dany, with undercurrents of maybe something more complicated brewing in the background.
Pretty obsessed with her.
And then his actual father is an old man at the Wall, who's then taken in Jon, who might be related to Dany, and then it's just strange. Like there's Dany's circle and Jon's circle have all these very weird connections. I feel like if you got all of them in a room together, it'd be very awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah. Putting Jorah with Dany was such a good fucking decision. Like it rounded things out so much. Like the scene with
the
scene where
decision.
Viserys bursts in to Vaes Dothrak and starts insulting people, and then they pour him the crown of gold and kill him. Like if I just forgot his name, Mormont?
Jorah?
Oh yeah, if I was trying not to call him Jory, which is the other guy. If Mormont was not there, that scene wouldn't work half as well, and that's one of the best scenes in the book.
Yeah, just I'm not sure if they're like conflating the two scenes. Like there's an early scene where Viserys tries to steal the dragon eggs.
No, I mean the one where he gets killed, because when he bursts in before he kills him, like Jorah runs up to Viserys and tries to talk him down, quote unquote. There's all these theories that Jorah was secretly egging Viserys on and trying to trick him into behaving in a way that would get him killed. But he's like translating to Viserys as this huge mound of Dothraki people are having the ceremony and like laughing at him from all their different ranks. The Dothraki were so much better in the books too, and that's just inevitable because the show did not have the time to fixate on the Dothraki. Yes. But the Dothraki are so likable. They're pretty likable by the end of it too, and I like how they had all these little. Well, okay.
Depending on their radar culture, but
they were interesting. They were interesting. I like how
better explored in the book. Yeah,
I like all the little gradations of rank and honor in their society. I like how in Vaes Dothrak, they have all the common people, and then in the corner they have the place where like cripples and old people and horseless losers are, and then they have the big elevated table where people are sitting with Drogo, who he is going to kill a few chapters later. Like the moment they leave, they're going to be back to killing each other, but they're hanging out and having mare's milk with each other, and that's cool. And then Jorah is allowed to sit in the middle, where he is granted. They say it's not a position of honor, but of respect, where they can respect Jorah because he's such a skilled knight in his own way, where he's not a Dothraki, but they can still appreciate him because he's such a badass.
Yeah.
I just like I like all the little nuances to how the Dothraki apply honor and rank to each other. Because when you first meet them, they seem like just a horde of idiots, and then you're like, oh no, there's all these little nuances to how they behave.
Yeah. I also just generally like their belief system and stuff, like the belief that the ghost grass is what will destroy the world eventually, and just silly stuff like that.
I mean, maybe.
Maybe it's a metaphor.
On that topic, in one of Danny's final scenes, where Khal Drogo. Oh, also, I just had a flashback. When I was in college, I had a long ponytail, and there was a guy in my dorm who used to jokingly call me Khal Drogo because he said the ponytail looked like Drogo's. I forgot that for 10 years, but here we are.
Yeah, no, you remember.
Yeah, now you know as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed at the end when Drogo has been turned into a vegetable and Danny is, about to smother him and takes him out under the open sky.
Yeah.
That scene even kind of choked me up a little, which I was not expecting. Because towards the end, Danny is she's absorbed enough of the Dothraki culture that she's invoking like the symbolism and the religion of the Dothraki to like brace herself emotionally before she kills him. And it shows that she's been with them long enough that in a little way she's kind of become part of them. That got to me. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I mean, again, also that she is respected at the end, that she basically becomes the new leader of a very small number of people who follow her.
Yeah, that's such a funny thing too. When Drogo dies, the next day it's like, yep, there's 5 new Khalasars now. Have fun.
Yeah.
Everyone just fucks off.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Oh yeah, final complaint about Danny. Or thought. George is slightly full of shit with because he totally sexualizes Danny in the books in a way that's not 100% necessary. I'm not mad, but I notice it, and in interviews I've heard him like try to play it off as like, oh, just being realistic. It's like, no, you fucking weren't, you fucking asshole. It's like there's these little moments of him like alluding to her body and stuff, which again, I'm not mad, but I'm also not going to pretend George wasn't having fun writing that and going farther than he needed to. Just saying.
Yeah.
Because I've seen so many interviews of him being like, oh, back then, they didn't have our modern concepts of, age and all that. And it's like, well, yeah, and that made you write sentences about Viserys pinching her nipples as she dresses in front of him, and quivering as she like gets in baths and stuff. It's like, fuck you, George. A little bit. I love him, but fuck him a little bit. Where are we? Oh yeah, speaking of which, the accusations of sexism are bullshit.
Yes, they absolutely are. Like, George R. R. Martin is a feminist writer, basically. Like, it's weird how anyone who reads the book can... Actually, I think those people have not read the books, can think any other way.
Yeah, and like people talk about like the hate that Kat gets. I feel like Kat gets exactly as much hate as she deserves. Like, she does some pretty horrible things in the books.
She does.
Like... The thing that really gets me, and Kat is very sympathetic at many points too. The thing in the books that just fucking bugged me so much, like her treatment of Jon goes way beyond what it needs to do.
Yeah, like does she treat Jon worse than Tywin treats Tyrion? That's the question.
I'd say yes. Okay, here's the thing. I feel like Tywin is, I mean, in the past, like the whole thing with the hooker and the gangbang in front of Tyrion, okay, that's worse than anything that happens between Kat and Jon. But in terms of like day-to-day behavior by the time of the book, I think Kat's worse. Because Tywin is like a snooty dickhead to Tyrion, but Tyrion is also a dickhead back to Tywin. They just don't like each other. It's not abusive, like they're just two fuckheads who don't like each other. John is only ever compliant and submissive and respectful towards Kat, as far as I remember. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a weird relationship, but he completely obeys her as like the woman of the house. And then when he tries to say goodbye to Bran, who's lying in, what could be his deathbed, Kat is just like sneering at him and like calling him a dirty bastard and trying to chase him off and saying he can't be in the same room as Bran. It's like, oh my god. I understand Kat's
Yeah.
hysterical, but that's like so fucking over the top.
Yeah.
John's like
really...
crying, trying to like hug his baby brother for the last time, and Kat's chasing him around with a broom like Tom and Jerry.
I remember that in the show they tried to make her more likable. Like they gave Catelyn a specific scene that did not happen in the books in terms of showing that she cared about Jon. But yeah, that's not in the source material.
I remember later, in the show, I remember later there was a scene where I don't remember who's talking, but someone was talking to Kat, trying to, kind of break her a little bit, talking about like, oh, your husband brought home a baby right after you got married, and then they said something like, did you pretend to love it? It's like, no, you're too honest a woman for that. You hated a little baby? That's so horrible. Like, I remember someone was trying to psych her out with that.
Yeah.
I don't remember
It was
who was
probably
talking.
Cersei, maybe.
Oh, it was probably Jaime.
It could have been Jaime as well.
Because she's with Jaime at one point after he gets captured, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they talk a few times.
Yeah, that's also that Jaime's kind of a weird one. I'm not even going to talk about him because he's just kind of a non-entity in the book at this point.
In the first, yeah, once you get like his viewpoint, he becomes like one of the best viewpoint characters.
Yeah. One of my final thoughts about Kat, which is really my first thought about Theon. Theon's relationship with Kat is fucking weird.
I don't really remember it, but I remember stuff you said. So
they don't even talk that much or anything, but at multiple points, Kat goes out of her way to involve Theon in stuff that logically she should not want Theon involved in.
I mean that I remember the first Catelyn, or rather actually Theon's. I forgot it was a Catelyn or a Theon scene from the second book. But Catelyn is against Robb sending Theon back to the Iron Islands. So it's weird that she behaves to him the way you describe it in book 1, and then she is against it in book 2.
Well, she implies that she doesn't trust Theon at points, but then she trusts Theon. In the books, Theon is a more traditional, like, bad boy, cool guy. Like, yeah. He's just one of the bros in the books. Like, he even gets a cool scene of saving Bran from bandits and, like, killing people.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe she, like, really... But maybe not warmed up to him, but really appreciated him doing that.
What the hell was I saying? But in the books, when Bran gets almost assassinated, when the Catspaw guy or whatever he's called, when the guy jumps out with the dagger and tries to kill Bran, and the ghost kills, and then the dog kills him, and all that happens, that's what starts the real conspiracy. Like, there was her letter. That's a whole other conversation. I don't think Lisa's letter about the conspiracy even happens in the show. And it was kind of odd.
I mean, it does. The letter definitely happens in the show.
Oh, okay. I guess I just don't remember. But in the book, after the assassination attempt, Kat just kind of jumps into action and goes, "Okay, that someone sent an assassin after my youngest son after he was mysteriously injured. This is the most sensitive matter that's ever happened. This is the beginning of a conspiracy and factionalism and maybe war. This is the most important thing we're ever going to do. So we need to trust everyone and only have the absolute inner circle involved." And she like beckons over to Sir Roderick and Sir Luwin, and Maester Luwin, and they get in a little huddle. Then Kat just like leans over and goes, "Hey Theon, get in here." And the four of them sit around and have a talk about the assassination attempt and try to figure out who the dagger belongs to. And the whole time I was just going, why the fuck would she have Theon be there?
Yeah, I know he was in the room at that point, so maybe she just.
I'm exaggerating, but why wouldn't she send him away? If she doesn't, if the Greyjoys are this evil house and she doesn't want Theon there in the first fucking place, like, why would she trust Theon more than... It's literally the two people outside her family that she trusts more than anyone in the world, maybe even more than Ned. And that's it. No, that's probably bullshit. But she doesn't. But Ned keeps lies from her as well, so who knows? And then Theon. It's like Sir Roderick, who's like Winterfell incarnate and the most loyal man in the world. Master Lewin,
who she is known for like 30, well, not 30 years, but for like 20 years.
Who she's known for most of her adult life.
Yeah.
Master Lewin, who in one of Kat's earliest scenes, she walks around naked in front of Master Lewin and then makes an offhanded comment about how she delivered all of her children and there's like nothing between them, so she's not going to be coy about nudity. And then Theon Greyjoy.
Yeah.
And then an even weirder one later when Robb calls the army, because initially Robb starts forming the army without, any real input from her. She goes up to him and says, "You could have had someone else lead the army in your stead. You could have had one of your bannermen do it, or Karstark, or maybe even Theon Greyjoy, although he wouldn't be my first pick." And I just remember thinking, why would having Theon Greyjoy lead the Northern Army be even within the realm of possibility to Kat? Like, I don't know if George was... This feels like something from an earlier draft that just slipped through, because I don't get why Kat likes Theon so much.
Yeah, it makes very little sense.
She goes, "Oh, I don't trust Theon." Then she explicitly involves him in the most delicate matters of state. And Sansa... I want to say about Sansa is just Kat, but worse.
I mean, she's like a teenage girl.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, Kat at least knows a lot about the world because she's so connected. Sansa has a similar personality to Kat, just with none of the experience or knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, given that like Sansa's story arc is just like her innocence being destroyed and she slowly becoming like a player with agency, very slowly, but that's like her thing, that she's just get beaten down by reality over and over and over.
Yeah, and she's definitely less hateable than Kat.
Yeah.
Like, Sansa commits no sin. She's just not a very likable person.
I mean, she did like fuck over Arya, I think, with the dog story, right? Where she lied, right? She lied at that point.
Oh yeah. I mean, okay, Sansa. I mean, actually, you know what? You're right. Sansa's horrible. I hope she dies.
No.
I mean, you can forget Sansa, but she doesn't bring a lot to the table. Like, she's just kind of a boring, like, weather vane character, and I'm sure she gets better later. But I liked her. Other than Bran, I liked her chapters the least.
I mean, I get it, and it is... I've not like talked about this, but it is amazing how well and good Game of Thrones as a book works, even though it's like a setup novel, and 90% of what happens in it is set up for stuff to come. And yeah, it's remarkable how well it holds up as a like on its own.
Yeah, and, I mean, you get so much like, story.
And yeah, just Sansa and Arya and Bran are like in the very early stages of where they are going. Like, we have not talked about Arya basically at all, but Arya throughout like all the books is my favorite viewpoint. But she does not have much in the first book at all, if I remember correctly.
I have mixed feelings about Arya because she's a very likable character, to an extent that's almost cheating.
Yes, maybe it is. I mean, she is the favorite viewpoint of not George's wife. Does he have a wife?
Actually, yes. He got married a few years ago for tax reasons.
Yeah, okay. I think it's his wife's.
But his mistress Paris was his girlfriend. It's Paris, right? His girlfriend for a long time, and then they got married.
Isn't it Lysa Tuttle?
What?
I forgot.
Oh, okay.
Am I mixing them up?
Or is it Gale? God
Okay,
damn it! I can't remember her
we have
fucking.
no George
Okay,
knowledge.
okay, hold on.
Lysa Tuttle.
George R. Martin wife. Oh, Paris.
Okay, no, Lysa Tuttle is then the other one. Okay.
Oh, Gale
yeah.
was his ex-girlfriend from the 70s. Okay, well that's cool. Good for them. Yeah, George used to look so weird. I mean, he still looks weird, but he looks like appropriately weird. Like George was born to be 60 years old. Are you there?
Yeah. I'm just reading up.
Yeah,
on
Arya was kind of cheating though because she's like, "Oh, look, this cute little sword waifu who runs around the castle having adventures, but then her dad's in trouble. Will she save him? Probably not." It's like no one's gonna dislike that character. I did like,
sure.
yeah.
As I said, she does not have that much stuff in the first book, but like with the second one onward, she like becomes my favorite viewpoint character.
Yeah, the first book
yeah.
is really just her bumbling around and trying to have agency and failing.
Yeah, and then basically being like I really like the just as a character writing stuff that Ned allows her to then have a fencing trainer that she does get to do this male coded thing, and just the fencing instructor as well. Like Syrio Forel is also just a very cool minor character.
Oh yeah, and I liked him more in the book too. Like he made her do so many goofy things. Like Arya got in trouble chasing cats around the castle because he made her chase cats.
I mean, yeah, that does happen in the show as well.
I'm sure.
Like that's how. Yeah, I mean, there's like I don't remember if this is like a show only scene or if it is in the books where while Arya's chasing cats, she like overhears this conversation with Varys, and
I think they cut that out of the show because I was surprised.
I know I know it's in the show,
God
but I was
damn
not
it.
sure if it's in
no,
the
book.
book.
That's in the book. That's definitely in the book.
Okay.
In my defense, I haven't watched the show in 10 years.
Okay, so yeah, I was not remembering if it was.
Yeah,
in the book
they have that in the. I was actually just looking at that again. Yeah, she runs into people. I didn't even totally understand who it was when it was happening. Then she runs back to her dad and tries to explain what happened, and she garbles it so much that, from his perspective, she's just babbling about nothing.
Yeah, indeed.
Ned gets so many chances not to be killed.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's actually, it was basically Littlefinger that got him killed, and not just with the betrayal, but with at the very end when he thinks if he confesses, he is going to be sent to the wall. Like that's been the deal before he confesses, and then he confesses, and Joffrey has him killed like immediately, and it's pretty much implied that it was Littlefinger who basically just told Joffrey to do that while Ned was confessing, like quietly told him, you should have him killed. Because I saw probably a Preston video, and the only character who is present who isn't freaked out and immediately tries to stop Joffrey when he commands the execution is Littlefinger, and everyone else is just really shocked and has not planned on that happening at all.
Yeah, that was a bummer.
Yeah, for a lot of people.
Yeah, oh god, I remember that scene was very memorable. A few, I don't know what, like 100 chapters or 100 pages earlier, where Ned is issuing the proclamation that the mountain is to be, executed.
Yeah,
and all
that's a cool scene because it basically starts the fighting.
I mean, that's a cool scene, but you really feel for Ned there. It's like, oh, dude, you're setting off events so far beyond your control right now.
Yeah, and it leads to like a lot of shit and suffering.
It's also funny, when I was reading that, a little part of me was like, are you sure it's the mountain? Like, everyone is just...
yeah, it's just people telling him it's the mountain.
All the evidence is just like, damn, the guy raping everyone is really tall, and he's like, okay, the mountain will be killed, and he hits his gavel. It's like, oh, Ned, I feel like you need a little more evidence than that, but...
Yeah. I mean, he was right, but it was still going off very.
That's back when the legal system worked.
It didn't. Like he was going off very spotty information.
Yeah. I mean, back then, you always knew you were getting the right guy because they always confessed before the execution.
Almost.
Always. Torture was involved, but, they still confessed.
Yeah. Man, that just sounds like first law stuff now.
Yeah. That's have you heard the phrase put his feet to the fire?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, do you know where it comes from?
Well, I can guess.
Yeah, it used to be a very common method of extracting confessions. The Spanish actually were very partial to it. And when Hernan Cortez went on his ill-fated expedition through Panama, which led to him being an ostracized pariah who was sent to go, garden until his final days after he fucked that up so bad. He had Montezuma's brother with him, and he actually did that to Montezuma's brother and put his feet in the fire and got him to confess to secretly plotting to undermine the expedition.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it wasn't Cortez trying to take a bunch of armored horses and cannons through a bog in Central America where all the natives told him it was impassable terrain. It was not that at all. It was Montezuma's brother.
I didn't know that Cortez messed. Like, I know Cortez for his earlier stuff, but I didn't know that he fucked up a specific expedition.
He became governor of New Spain, and he ruled like a third of the continent. But no one really trusted him, and a lot of people were just kind of looking for an excuse to get rid of him. And then after he did that, the crown was like, you can have this little parcel of land on the coast, and never ever talk to us again. And he did.
Man, history is weird.
Yeah, it's weird. George will tell you all about it.
Yeah, like it's another really great skill of George R. R. Martin to write or imply this greater and long history in his books. He may not be as good as Tolkien doing that, but he is extremely good at it.
He might not be as good as who?
Tolkien.
Oh yeah, like, well, I wouldn't know. But yeah, George is incredible. Yeah, even just recent history feels so alive. Like I like how all the older characters have like some connection to Rhaegar and the previous regime. Like
a lot, yeah. Specifically the earlier regime, as you put it.
Yeah, and like half the characters in King's Landing have, a relation, and it's such a weird time to start the story as well, because the Targaryens were like this crazy, fantastical race of otherworldly people that conquered with dragons. Like the story begins right after this crazy, world-building spree ends. Like the Targaryen rule is so more fantastical than Robert's, and you cut in right when they finally go away.
Yeah, it used to be very fantastical until then the Dance of the Dragons happened and there were no more dragons, which is like shit. I forgot how many years. It's like more than 100 years.
I think it's like 300.
Actually, yeah, it's like actually way more
300,
than 100 years.
Or 300 might be when Aerys established the kingdom, but
Aegon, yeah.
Or Aegon, yeah, whoever.
Yeah. Yeah, like there's like a big chunk of history of Targaryen rule where they are like way less magical and don't have dragons anymore before we then get to
and then they finally sweep away the final remnants of that, and George is like, and now the story begins.
Yeah, it's an interesting point to start from. Yeah, like it's like 14 years after that.
Yeah, it's so funny that you have to keep reminding yourself, like, oh yeah, there were dragons here in the relatively recent past. Like that's just such a strange, it's just such a strange thing. And they hint towards so much crazy shit too. Like they talk about the children of the forest. There's like 3 different ethnicities that populate Westeros that came in waves and kind of pushed each other around. There's the crazy trees in the north that have faces on them.
Yeah, like all the magical stuff. I mean, he does this thing where the magical stuff slowly comes alive again, which we then have with the birth of the dragons at the end of the book and other stuff. Like from that, well, actually, like a little bit earlier than that, but with that, pretty much the magic seems to be slowly to return.
Yeah, sounds good. I can't wait to see how it ends.
I mean, I like that it's like very low on magic stuff. Like it's you could hardly call it a fantasy story. It's pretty interesting. Like it's considered this what would be a correct word? Like this phase of modern fantasy, and it hardly has any fantasy elements in it.
Yeah, it's interesting, but you kind of feel that it's all there. It's just it's odd.
Somewhere hidden and under the surface.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring something up, but I forgot what it was.
I'll say about the Targaryens real quick. The theory that Tyrion is a secret Targaryen. I think
makes sense.
I think I had heard that a while ago, or like Jacobs mentioned it in passing. I was looking for it when I read the book, and when Tyrion's talking about having dreams of like setting his family on fire, it's like, oh well, that obviously makes sense. Especially when
he has like dragon dreams, and that's like really weird. And where he wanted to have like a dragon as a birthday present or something when he was really young.
Yeah, and like George has such a fascination with hair color and like little genetic things that the idea that he'd be like to George, the idea of pulling the switcheroo where it's like, ha 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 ha, you thought he was from this one family where everyone's blonde, but he's from this other family where everyone's blonde. It's like that would be very George.
The theory, as far as I remember, goes that Aerys raped Tywin's wife, and that's also one other reason why Tywin hates Tyrion so much.
I feel like if Tywin knew Tyrion was a child of rape, he would have just killed him.
I mean,
maybe he figured it out later.
It's written and implied that Tywin extremely loved his wife. Like that was basically the only person that made him human in terms of emotions.
Oh.
So I don't know if he would do that. And given like his whole family comes first, like even if he's only half of his family, he would still be of his family. So I don't know what he would do. But yeah, I mean, I wonder if we will ever get an answer if this theory is correct or not.
Yeah. On the topic of early things and that kind of thing, about Arya real quick. Her early dynamics with Jon, where they're like secret buddies, because
that's pretty wholesome.
That's pretty wholesome and nice. I was on the lookout for it, and I wrote down like, I think they're totally telegraphing that they're going to end up not actually being related.
I mean I think the original draft had them get together. I think even though they were related or not, I forgot.
Oh, okay. Anyway, I was gonna say I had strong, like there's gonna be a switcheroo here vibes.
It's sort of implied or telegraphed in this way, yeah. What I wanted to bring up is when you said like people having connections to like the old regime, Barristan Selmy, who obviously
I fucking love that guy. I forgot to bring him up.
Yeah, he is like obviously he becomes way more important as the story goes on. I really like his connection. Like he like admired Rhaegar, but he has like this. This is not in the first book, but he extremely regrets losing to Rhaegar in this one tournament, which basically started the war when he gave his
Harrenhal.
The tourney at Harrenhal, where he gave the crown of roses to Lyanna instead of his own wife, and that like sparked the whole war basically. Like. He being like he fought for Rhaegar and stuff like that, and then he got wounded, and Robert, who also got wounded in the battle, like insisted that Barristan be treated first. Like it's like a really cool connection that he has with both the old regime and the new, with Robert and the current kingdom going on. It's like really cool.
Yeah, Barristan he's just like a lovable old man. Like he's like he's arguably like one of the best characters in the book. Like maybe in
Yes,
terms of like morally, like he's just a good guy.
mostly. Like he himself is like a little bit hard on himself. Um, I think that I love about the books in general is that you get so many different perspectives of people through those different viewpoints. Like Rhaegar is described like completely different if you hear him described by Robert or by Barristan or by Viserys. So I love that you have like these insane amount of perspectives on different on characters via different characters.
Yeah, it's crazy how much Rhaegar hangs over the story at this point.
Yeah, he's like super important in terms of backstory stuff, it seems.
Like so many people are hung up on Rhaegar or his memory or what he meant, even though they're he's kind of a ghost at this point too. Like you feel like their memories of Rhaegar are a little colored by time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, it's fucking weird how young the characters are in the book. Like that's the one thing that kept throwing me.
That's really messed up.
Like Ned's in his 30s, Cat's still trying to have another kid. The Jon is 14, Arya is a pretty young child.
Yeah, like Arya's like 9, Bran is 8, and Sansa's like 11. It's or 12. No, I think she's 11. Whatever. It's like insane to think about what those people are going through.
Yeah, and it just also reminds you, like, yeah, lives were condensed back in the day. People didn't spend 30 years doing whatever before their lives really began. It's like a lot of them were in their 30s and they were like over the hill and covered in scars and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting times. Man, there are so many characters in this that are they're characters that they're the coolest guy ever. Barristan Selmy is the coolest guy ever. The Mormonts are the coolest guy ever. Brynden Tully, the Blackfish, also the coolest guy ever.
Yeah, there's like a character that was not included in the show, but I don't know if you will ever read up. Like he comes in book 5, who you will probably also think this about, if you read up to that point.
I suspect I will eventually. Part 5, there's a very real chance it'll be after George is dead. But
no, part 5, like we have 5 books.
No, I'm saying I will read it after George is dead.
I don't think so.
I suspect there's going to be at least a couple years gap at some point in the process of me reading this. Oh god, and I'm never reading Wheel of Time because fuck that.
I mean, after having read the first 2 books, yeah.
I mean, Wheel of Time, people will look you dead in the eye and be like, oh, there's this thing called the slog where the books are really bad, but you'll get through it. Then you look it up and it's like 1,000,000 words. It's like, no, I'm good.
I wish I would have liked the first 2 books, but I have not. And the first one was pretty miserable. The second one was a bit better, but still not great. Like I don't know how people like at least the starting point of those books. Although I've heard that in retrospect, knowing more stuff from later books make the first book like better, but as a like starting out, it's not a good start.
Yeah, I mean, Game of Thrones, like it almost rekindled a love of reading. I mean, I've been reading more and trying to read more for a few years now, but yeah. Game of Thrones, it was like it was one of the first books in a while where I was just walking around being like, I wonder what Ned's up to. Like maybe I'll read a chapter at lunch. I read it shockingly fast for how big it is. I feel like I took forever to read this book, but like taken objectively, it only took me a few months really, and it's
Yeah, I was surprised when you suddenly said, "Oh, I have only like 60 pages left," and I was like, "What?"
I did have the unfortunate thing in the middle where I accidentally jumped like 100 pages.
Yeah, that was funny.
And then people were just alluding. I was just reading a Jon chapter, and Mormont walked over and said, "Oh yeah, thanks for saving me from that zombie 5 hours ago." And I was like, "What? I don't remember that." I feel like I would have remembered that.
Yeah, that's your fault for not using bookmarks.
Yeah, I'm a free spirit.
Yeah, you're too smart for bookmarks.
Yeah. I should just rip out pages and throw them in the garbage after I read them, and then I'll always know where I'm at.
One time. Yeah, true.
Yeah,
Very true.
I mean, books could be disposable if they wanted them to be.
When I grew up, I reread books constantly. Like I don't have like the drive for it much anymore, but I've reread books so many times.
Yeah, I mean, I've read very few books. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to, at least with the earlier Harry Potter books, sometimes I would make a game out of trying to read them in a day, which I did
Yeah.
a few times. Don't think I would do that now. But anyways, yes. Oh man, are there other thoughts I need to get out there? Oh, I will say about Sansa. She was not very likable, but this is another George is a genius moment. He gave her this relationship with the Hound where he becomes the Hound's morality pet and like kind of a redemptive relationship in a very small way. And because we
the
already like
connection.
the Hound, that then transfers to Sansa and we start liking Sansa because the Hound likes Sansa. Like, okay,
Yeah.
well played, George. Well played.
And then, I mean, it gets like if you think about it, it gets even weirder because the Hound then later ends up in connection with Arya, so he has then this connection with both of the Stark children, which is it's another interesting layer.
Yes, the masculine urge to escort a young noble girl across hostile territory. George knows what men aspire to.
Yeah.
He's so cool. The Hound was a great. I don't even have that much to say about the Hound. He's just so fucking great. I just love him.
Yeah, he's another really cool character.
Yeah, he'd be mean to me in real life, but I like him in the book. So
he might like you and would have liked you in real life.
Yeah, you never know. The Hound is such a fucking tsundere.
He is, yeah.
he's like secretly really empathetic, but life has been so horrible to him that he just can't process it.
Yeah, I mean, you're right.
I mean, it's that classic thing. Like, nobody who says it's all bullshit believes it's actually all bullshit because they feel compelled to tell you that, which means they care.
It's like the person who has to say they are the king is not the true king.
Yeah, it's like it's not like I like you or anything, Baka. It's like, well, you saying that, you would only say that if you did like them. If you didn't care at all, you would just ignore them or rape people like the Mountain does. And it's a great moment of character for him too. Like him saving quote unquote Sir Loras. Like it's unclear how much danger Loras was actually in. But him jumping.
I think like in a straight fight, I think the Mountain would have butchered Loras.
Oh yeah, I just mean like Robert is standing right there. Would the Mountain have actually done it if Robert would see that it was murder? Maybe.
I think he would.
Maybe. I lean towards yes too, but you're never totally sure. Like him jumping in to save Loras. The Hound scenes at the end where he's like trying to help Sansa by gently prodding her into behaving in a way that will
she does not get herself punished or killed.
Yeah, like he's trying to. Yeah, he's trying to like kind of very carefully put himself between Joffrey and Sansa and coach her into how to get through this, and it's very sweet of him. Like he murders children, but he helps them too. Like they kind of cancel out.
I don't know if you remember this, but in the second season and the second book, he protects Sansa during a riot. Like he saves her from like being raped, which is like another big. I almost calling it a bonding moment between them.
Yeah, very, very, very true. This just reminded me of a tweet. Where Drill said, drunk driving may kill a lot of people, but it also helps a lot of people get to work on time, so it's impossible to say if it's bad or not. That's the Hound.
I don't know why that connected to that tweet, but
well, it's like the Hound may kill children, but he also helps them cross the street sometimes, so it's hard to know if he's bad or not. Related to that, I forget his name, but that member of the Night's Watch who saves Arya at the end.
Oh yeah, Yoren.
Yoren. and that was such another good writing quote by, or that was such another great decision by George, because much earlier Euron walks in and talks to Ned, and he refers to Arya as a boy, just like flippantly, because Arya is scruffy and dirty, and I think that's actually right after she just washed out in the river and had to walk back. And Arya's offended is like, "I'm a girl," and then she storms off. And then when he saves her at the end, he leans in and calls her boy as a way to signal she's supposed to pretend to be a boy.
Yeah.
That's just genius. That's just George sometimes knows how to set something up where it'll be so satisfying when it finally comes back.
He's a very, very good writer.
That's like the heartbreaking thing with this. It's like I knew everyone said, like, for years people talked about how talented George was, and like it's not that I didn't believe them, I just wasn't that invested in it. Then when I read it, it's like this is heartbreakingly good. Last winter when I bought this just on a lark, I don't even like the edition I have because it has the show poster on the cover. But when I bought Game of Thrones, I just read the prequel, where they're in the north and there's the White Walkers and the guy and that Ray and Royce gets killed.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking
that's Royce.
Yeah, this is heartbreakingly good. Like no one's prose is better than George's.
I think you would probably now think of McCarthy.
You know what?
Although I don't.
McCarthy's prose is incredible. It's kind of a good thing. But for being entertaining and readable and just like pretty and to pull you along through the story, I don't know if anyone's prose is better than George that I've read. And that's not an incredible compliment. Like McCarthy's prose is beautiful, but it's beautiful in the way like the statue of David is beautiful. It's like, yes, it's an incredible monument to the human spirit, but you're not going to hang it up in your fucking driveway or something like that.
Okay. Decision moment. Like George's writing style or Dan Simmons in the first Hyperion book?
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
You know what? I will say Simmons is probably better at dialogue, but that's close.
At dialogue, that's like interesting.
I think so. I think so. Like Simmons also writes like in hard perspective more than he writes in first person perspective with the characters, so it's a little different. It's a little different, yeah. Or through the storytelling voice, like the prose is the character speaking in Hyperion.
Okay, now I get what you mean. Yeah.
As opposed to George, where he shows quotes, but the character is not telling the story. I lean towards George, but it's close. I'd honestly have to reread Hyperion to make that call.
Yeah, I want to reread that as well.
Maybe I should, and then maybe we can get Michi. Maybe we can revisit part 2 2 years later. That would actually be fucking genius because it's about time travel. So yeah. It's all
no
coming
time
together.
Has passed. We've always been here talking about
but
the fall of Hyperion.
There are so many authors where I am a persnickety bitch when I read. Like I will always notice little writing things the book does that I don't like. It's like oh, you used that word twice in the same paragraph. It's like, oh, that was an awkward way to structure that. Like, that's an adverb you didn't need.
Yeah, exactly.
With George, his writing is just like flawless. Even if a paragraph is not like heartbreakingly beautiful, he never fucks up. He never slips. He just writes words that slide into your head seamlessly, and then you just enjoy the words.
But some of the stuff he writes is like a little weird. You probably have heard like some of the meme phrases being thrown around.
Yes, the more she drank, the more she shat, and by morning she was shitting brown water.
That's one of them, exactly.
Yes, her crotch was like a Mirish swamp.
Yep.
Yeah. I just heard one today about Cersei rambling about eating Robert's cum.
That one is actually weirdly poetic.
Yeah, I'm good. I don't need that, George. I'm fine. Oh, the other day I was listening to the video again, where they rank every food description in A Song of Ice and Fire, and the whole video series is like 10 hours long. Um,
Shit.
some of them are so goddamn funny. Oh god, the people who do it's like the alt shift person.
Yeah, I
Oh
was
god,
wondering. Like, I
that video
think
is so funny. I always remember the one where Tyrion gets back to the Lannister camp, and they have a bunch of suckling pigs, and it says there was a different fruit in every mouth, and the host just went, "Thanks, George." I just laugh as I just randomly remember that and laugh throughout the week. It's so
it's
funny.
nice to have things like that. I
Yeah.
haven't watched the video, but I've like Glidus and Orchwift X also do like the reviews for House of the Dragon, and I also laugh my ass off for every episode review that they do.
Yeah, I watched the first half of House of the Dragon season 1 while I was flying to Portugal the last time I went there,
All right.
and
Yeah.
it was okay.
My first season is pretty good, actually, I would say.
I
And
don't.
second season, the first half was good, and the second half is shit for various reasons.
It's not bad or anything. And the main character Keen guy, I actually really like him as a character. I think he's very well fleshed
Oh yeah,
out and relatable and
yeah,
believable and all that. It just feels like Game of Thrones light. It's like, yeah, this is
yeah.
a stripped
Exactly.
down
It's
Game of Thrones.
But it's not necessarily stripped down. Like
There's a
it's
lot less going on, and like the conflict is much simpler. There's just like there's a few straightforward choices that some people will like and some people won't like. It's not like Game of Thrones where there's 500 people and they all have like slightly different desires for how things are going to go. And
I
but
mean,
we
technically they're just not exactly doing a good job with making them actual characters.
and,
That's like one of the big failures.
yeah, it's kind of it's fine. I don't care enough to finish it, I think, but like it can exist.
It does
Is it
exist,
worth
yeah.
Winds of Winter never coming out? Probably not, but we weren't going to get that anyway, so who cares?
We
Uh,
will. I still stand by. We get Winds of Winter.
I think us getting Winds of Winter is actually not. I'm just going to copy Preston Jacobs. I'm going to take his. I'm going to just steal his position. Like, will we get wins? Probably not, but maybe. But if we do get it, it's not going to be satisfying. Um,
Mm,
Man,
uh,
Do I have anything
yeah.
left to say? Or
Not specifically, like, but I told you about that. I like watched this one video about the guy trying to mathematically figure out when Winds of Winter will be published, and he noted an interesting thing with the later Game of Thrones books that or Song of Ice and Fire books rather, that George always seemed to come to the conclusion that he needed two books instead of one. So I'm like wondering if he realized that he might have the same problem with Winds of Winter, that he actually has to split Winds into two books. That would be really weird.
I mean, that would be weird. I I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith because he's talked about pages and all that, and I don't think it's that Wins is too long. I think it's I think he's just procrastinating. Also, I think he's just not that excited anymore.
Oh yeah, I think
Like
he's got like he has been. I don't want to say depressed, but he's been like beaten down by everything basically.
yeah, he's just like old and tired and disappointed and
Yeah,
like I
disappointed is like a disillusion. That's actually the word I was looking for.
I have a bone to pick with the Red Team review guy, the one who's not Preston, who's obviously the only
Yeah,
one who
Carmine.
matters. Yeah, Carmine, the guy who gets his head shot off
What?
in every. Did you ever play Gears of War?
Yes.
Okay, you know how the Carmine brothers
No.
always die ironically, and like
No.
the first Carmine gets like his head blown off with a sniper. The second Carmine gets eaten by a worm. I think they actually had a vote like online to see if the third Carmine would live in Gears 3. Uh, And they do a bait and switch at the end where you see his helmet. But okay, anyways, I have a bone to pick with Carmine. Yeah, you hear that, Carmine? If you ever hear this, I'm coming for you. But
No.
I don't think he's worried. But he continually talks about his legacy, like George fucking up his legacy, and how if he was George's age, he'd be really concerned about his legacy and be trying to secure his spot on, the Mount Olympus of fantasy writers or whatever the fuck, Mount Rushmore. I am of the other opinion. I think that if I was that old, I would just be going like, yeah, actually, you know what? Fuck everyone. Fuck my legacy. Fuck my fans. Fuck HBO. I have like 5 years left on this earth. I'm going to spend it just enjoying my time with the people I care about, and everyone else can fucking die. Like that's what I would be doing.
I mean,
And
I agree with your viewpoint. Like, if you don't want to write anymore or whatever, want to do something else, you can just do that. Like, you don't really owe people or your fans a conclusion to your story.
I mean, I don't. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna hedge a bit. I think George does owe us a conclusion, but like sometimes you fail, and that's okay.
Did he fail? That's
Well,
the question.
yes, he did. I mean, he's the one who set the goal and then never accomplished it.
Never is only
Well,
a never once he dies.
who didn't
Before that,
accomplishment? I mean, I don't. George obviously still has like a lot of talent and stuff left in him, but like I don't know if he has he's almost 80. I don't know if he has the focus to or the energy for it anymore.
Look, we've got Togashi back, so we can get George Martin back as well.
It's true, and George can probably wipe his own ass, so that's he has that.
Yeah.
I don't know that he can't, but he can, but probably. If a character shows up and wins who can't wipe his own ass, then we'll know we're in trouble. But I think it's fine. Like I think George does owe us the book kind of because it's if George 20 years ago had said I'm losing interest in the series and fuck off, that would be kind of a betrayal, but whatever. If you if you live a life of fame and fortune predicated on the lie that you're working on something you're not working on, then I think you do kind of owe people the book. If George had said the book's not coming out, that would be one thing. But George has been telling people, oh, the book's coming out any day now for 10 years. I think you do owe the people the book if you do that because people are making decisions predicated on what you're saying. Like George pitches himself as a celebrity author.
George very much still believes that he will get this book out, so he has not lost interest in it yet.
And okay, then he owes us the book. if you believe you're giving people a book, and you tell people for years and years and years, oh, I'm totally getting you this book, including people you have business relationships with, then you kind of owe people the book, George. I mean. Yeah,
I mean, I don't think that he will ever lose interest in Game of Thrones. So it's like more of a question if his like health and stuff holds up until he's finished, at least the Winds of Winter.
Yeah, I mean it's
one of those that's why things. I believe we will get the book. Like I think he can still get this out before like age takes a real toll on him.
It could happen, but also with age, like getting old is like going bankrupt, as I can tell you. It happens gradually, then suddenly. I think George is probably just going to have like a 2-year period at some point in the next 10 years where he like suddenly becomes a decrepit old man who can't do shit.
Probably, yeah.
But I'm not a doctor. I'm not anything actually. I'm unemployed again, and at least this time it's...
Yeah, but this time by choice.
This time it makes sense. It was a temporary job. I swear to fucking God, man. Also, I will say, I mean, I guess we're just talking about George now. I kind of developed a fascination with George at the same time I developed a weaker fascination with Patrick Rothfuss. Because I was procrastinating my writing and I was being a delusional failure that, says he does things and then doesn't do them or takes years.
As all of us writers are.
Yeah, I know, man. But I sublimate my guilt over not accomplishing my dreams by watching
the day you
YouTube
catch up in word count with where I am right now is the moment I lose.
Wait, me specifically?
Yes, you specifically.
Oh, okay. Well, that'll be a while.
You're at like what, 17,000 something or almost 18,000?
Oh, you mean with City of Flies? Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I don't mean like total word count. Yeah, so I have like a bit more than 20,000 words to spare before you catch up with where I am right now in the rewrite.
Better get going. You only I could hit that anywhere between 2 weeks and 6 months from now, so you better
and tomorrow,
yeah, or tomorrow. You never know. But I sublimated my guilt into watching videos about Patrick Rothfuss and George R. Martin, who I only learned about Rothfuss from watching videos like Preston videos about Martin. And I'm almost offended by that at this point, because in the process of being a hater, like I was a George Martin hater, not in the sense that I hated him as a person, but like I watched videos making fun of him and wins and all that. Through the back door of being a hater, I've like come to really love him as a creator, and I have an incredible deal of respect for him now. I'm almost done with Name of the Wind, the audiobook, and that these two get compared to each other is such a fucking travesty. I don't know how many people compare them in quality, but it's like with George, it's sad. Like with George, he's fucking Robert, like someone who was so incredible in ways and such a good example, and like someone who was just like a father to us all in a literary sense and had the potential to be this titan of the culture, and who accomplished a fair amount of that potential. Yeah, like he's like George Lucas. Like even as someone who had these massive failures, he's still one of the all-time, greats. What is it with people named George? George Washington too? I mean, I don't know.
Must be all the King Georges of England. Must be a blessed name or something.
It's fucking sad.
What does the name even mean? Let's look this up.
It's probably going to be like something related to the land, because Geo and but it sounds like a Germanic name too, so it might have no connection at all. I don't know. I mean,
in German it would be Georg, but I still don't know what that would mean.
But
give a name.
It's honestly tragic, because like I developed a very real affection for George in the process of reading this.
It comes from Greek. That's interesting.
Okay, that's interesting. It's gonna mean like he who doesn't write or something like that.
Oh, it was an early title for Zeus. That's interesting.
Oh wait, is it related to Jove then, perhaps, or like?
Okay, but it also. Okay, this is weird. Okay, yeah, it means farmer, but it was used as a what did I say? A title for Zeus, like Zeus the farmer.
Okay.
I never knew that Zeus was referred to as a farmer.
Also, George III, the guy that George Washington fought his troops for the War of Independence. George III was sometimes called Farmer George, because he had a reputation for being very down to earth and interested in commerce and agriculture and things like that.
Well, great. It's not a new moon. It's farmer.
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, but I don't know. Just fuck Patrick Rothfuss. After months and months and months, I would. Like Rothfuss is just a fucking piece of garbage compared to. I feel bad. I feel bad personally, because I compared in my head George and Pat were like in the same category, and after having experience with both of their work, George is like this beloved tragic figure that I feel bad that things didn't go better, and I really wish Rothfuss just never published a word. I wish he had stayed a fucking high school teacher and shut the fuck up.
Patrick Rothfuss has like a lot of problems as well. So it's like I used to watch a lot of his streams and just follow along with news and stuff. So I've like probably more of a.
Here's the question though:
nuanced
how many of
viewpoint.
his problems are either problems everyone has or things he brought on himself?
Well, that's a good question, but still,
Yeah,
it's
like,
for me. It's at least like more understandable than it is for you. But yeah,
well, I'm
like
just fucking mad because like there was a point in the last few months when I was trying to force myself to finish the audiobook of Name of the Wind and physically reading Game of Thrones concurrently. And it was just frustrating because like I'm reaching the end of Game of Thrones and I'm so invested and excited and so much is happening. And I'm in the final 5 hours of Name of the Wind. And Kavoth is still pontificating about stupid bullshit and how clever he is. And nothing has happened. And I'm mad. I'm mad that I invested all this time in this book.
Might it not just be a matter of taste? I mean, I like Game of Thrones also way more than I like Name of the Wind and The Wise Man's Sphere. But it might for you just be like a very big taste difference.
I mean, it might be a taste difference, but you know what? I feel like there's a moral issue at play here.
Sure, as there always is in
I
terms
think
of
I'm going to
writers
venture
not
this. I
finishing their
think
stuff.
Patrick Rothfuss is a bad writer because he's a bad person.
Well, whatever you say.
Yeah. It's like, oh, it's so weird. The delusional narcissist wrote a 400,000 word book of someone just pontificating about times he was cleverer than other people in high school. Fuck off. Yes, that's an exaggeration, but in my heart it feels totally accurate, so I'm going to say it. George's writing is like so alive and so interested in people and the decisions they make and like the dreams they have and the relationships they have with each other. Like George, you can just see. George has even said that he struggles with real people and characters in books is like how he expresses himself, but George is so fucking fascinated with human behavior and like what people mean to each other and how they see each other and how they see themselves. It's like it's like a god looking at humanity through their own eyes and like trying to find the virtue in all of them, as opposed to 200,000 words of I'm fucking great. And I just have like a night and day view of the two people at this point. This is just me expiating myself of guilt over having been too mean to George in the past, and I'll make myself feel better by
you just transfer the guilt from one person to the next.
Yep. Okay, I'm done with that. I won't attack Rothfuss anymore.
Okay.
I'm done. But yeah, I'm sad that I'm glad George has a huge corpus of other writing I can eventually go back to.
I mean, you could. Other than Sand Kings, I have not read anything other than Game of Thrones and Fire and Blood.
Yeah, I mean, Jacobs has read
literally
every.
And of course,
yeah.
Yeah, he's read everything, and I listened to the audiobook versions of Dunk and Egg, which are also really good.
Oh yeah, I think that's like up on YouTube. I kind of want to look at that.
Yeah, I don't know if they are still there, or if they have been re-uploaded, but that's where I listen to them. And yeah, they are good. They're fairly short. Like if you want more George Martin in the same universe and same style, pretty much as Game of Thrones, you can check those out. They're cool.
I'm kind of bummed that they're trying to create like a Game of Thrones cinematic universe.
Yeah, that's like such. Marketing people are horrible.
Like there's better things we could get, but yeah, I mean it's cool. I have the entire rest of my life to go back and just pick away at George, and I probably will. So that's neat. Thank you, George.
Yeah, let's all say thanks, George, for your writing.
I'm looking over my notes. I think I'm about done of ideas. One real quick because of an interview, I read some of Jack Vance because Martin said he was like this
Oh, right.
forgotten
Yeah,
master.
you said that.
I noticed definite similarities in the writing style. Like Vance has incredible like flowing paragraphs and is very subtle about how he slips in information the same way George is. Also, Vance loves to use the word manse all the time, and that's totally where George got that from, and I find that funny.
And what does the word "mans" mean?
It's just a word for like palace or just like a big
Oh, like
house.
mans. Okay, I was thinking of like Mans Raider, like that's spelled differently.
Yeah, it's just like a big house or
Yeah,
like
yeah.
or
Okay,
a mansion.
then okay, I know that word. Yes, I was thinking of MANCE.
Yeah, not like Mance Raider or
Yeah,
whatever, but
yeah.
well, I'm I'll ask if you have anything left to say because I'm looking at my notes and
No, I don't
think
I don't
I
have
think I'm done.
anything else on my mind
Well,
in terms of Game of Thrones.
well, you know, we should stream more again, especially since I'm entering a new phase of life and will probably have time. You know, I'm entering a phase where I have time and I'm not
Spending
falling
it
into
outright.
desperate poverty. Or yeah, I'll also not write to save more time. But maybe we'll do some streams. Okay.
Maybe we will.
I'm done.
So am I.
Okay, bye.